The night sky above the Arecibo Observatory was clear and dotted with countless stars. Olivia Bennett rubbed her tired eyes and checked her watch. Almost 3 a.m. She should have gone home hours ago, but something in the data kept bothering her. Olivia took another sip of cold coffee and studied the screen again. The signal was faint but consistent. It didn't match any known astronomical pattern and clearly wasn't random noise. It was coming from somewhere beyond Pluto's orbit, and it had been broadcasting for 3 days now. She picked up her phone and dialed. After 4 rings, a groggy voice answered. "Jack Robinson. Jack, it's Olivia. I need you to look at something. Do you know what time it is?" "I wouldn't call if it wasn't important." 6 hours later, Jack walked into the observatory's main control room. His short gray hair was uncombed, and dark circles hung under his eyes. As NASA's top communications specialist, he was used to urgent calls, but they rarely came from astrophysicists. "This better be good," he said, setting his laptop down next to Olivia's workstation. "It is. Look at this pattern." She pointed to the screen. It repeats every 73 seconds with minor variations in the 3rd and 8th segments. Jack studied the data for several minutes, his frown deepening. "This isn't natural." "That's what I thought. It's structured, almost like a language." Jack finished. "Send me everything you have. I need to run some analysis." Over the next 3 weeks, Jack barely left his office at NASA. He ran the signal through every decryption algorithm, compared it to every known language pattern, and developed new software specifically to break down its structure. Olivia called daily for updates. On day 22 at 2:17 a.m., Jack's computer pinged with a result. The translation was rough, but clear enough to send a chill down his spine. He immediately called the director of NASA, who called the president, who called an emergency meeting of the National Security Council. By morning, armed guards stood outside Jack's office as he explained what he'd found to Admiral Peter Grant, and a room full of stern-faced military and government officials. "It's a formal declaration," Jack said, pointing to the translated text on the screen. "From something called the Voraxian Empire. They're announcing their intent to add Earth to their collection of subjugated worlds." "Are you absolutely certain?" Admiral Grant asked. He was a tall man with a weathered face and steel gray hair cut in a military style. "The language patterns are unmistakable. This is a communication intended for us to understand. They're telling us they're coming." The room fell silent. "Could it be a hoax?" someone asked. Jack shook his head. "The signal originates from approximately 40 astronomical units away. That's beyond Neptune. No human technology could broadcast from there." Within days, a response was drafted. Earth's most powerful radio telescopes transmitted a message of peace and welcome, inviting dialogue and mutual understanding. The reply came 3 days later, but not as a signal. The small research outpost on Mars, home to 12 scientists and engineers, suddenly went silent. Satellite imagery showed only a smoking crater where the facility had stood. That evening, every television, radio, phone, and computer on Earth broadcast the same message simultaneously. A strange face appeared on screens worldwide. It had gray-blue skin, no visible nose, and large black eyes that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "People of Earth," the creature spoke in perfect English. "I am High Commander Zexital of the Voraxian Empire. Your planet has been selected for integration into our domain. This is an honor not given to all worlds. Your response to our announcement was noted. The removal of your Mars outpost was a necessary demonstration of our resolve. You have 1 standard month to prepare for integration. Resistance is not advised." The broadcast ended as suddenly as it had begun, leaving billions of people staring at their screens in shock and fear. Inside the Pentagon's most secure meeting room, Admiral Grant addressed a hastily assembled team of military leaders, scientists, and intelligence officers. "What do we know about their capabilities?" he asked. Young analyst cleared her throat. "Based on the destruction of the Mars outpost and their ability to hijack our global communication simultaneously, their technology is far beyond ours. Our intelligence suggests they have faster-than-light travel, energy weapons, and defensive Systems we can't even comprehend. Have they done this before? Taken over other planets? Olivia, who had been invited as one of the discoverers of the signal, spoke up. We've been analyzing astronomical data from the past decade. We've identified anomalies around 37 star systems that match patterns we're now seeing in our own system. We believe these were previous conquests. Any evidence of successful resistance? Grant asked. None, Olivia replied quietly. The Admiral stood up and looked around the room. I need options that don't involve surrender. I don't care how outmatched we appear to be. Humanity doesn't bow. Jack, who had been silent, finally spoke. Admiral, we need to understand what integration means. The translation suggests it's not just conquest. They want something specific from us. Agreed. Priority 1 is intelligence gathering. We need to know what we're facing and why they want Earth specifically. Grant turned to his aide. I want a task force assembled. The best minds we have. Military, scientific, diplomatic, everyone, codename it Project Bulwark. As the meeting ended, Jack pulled Olivia aside. There's something in the original message I didn't share with the group yet. A phrase that doesn't translate well. What is it? She asked. Something about humans being suitable vessels. I don't know what it means, but I don't think they're interested in our resources or our land. Olivia's face paled. They want us. Over the next week, strange ships appeared. In Earth's orbit, small scout vessels establishing positions around the planet. In their shadow loomed a massive warship, the Dominion, a constant reminder of what awaited at the end of the month-long countdown. Several nations, acting against international agreement, launched missiles at the scout ships. The weapons didn't even reach their targets, disintegrating mid-flight. In response, the Varaxians vaporized a small uninhabited island in the Pacific. The message was clear. In his private office, Admiral Grant reviewed the initial reports from Project Bulwark. The options were few and the outlook bleak, but one report caught his attention. A theoretical paper by Dr. Samantha Weiss about unique properties of human consciousness and its potential interaction with quantum states. It was highly speculative, possibly impossible, and likely suicidal to attempt. But it was also something the Varaxians might not expect. Grant picked up his secure phone. Get me Dr. Weiss, immediately. As night fell across a frightened Earth, the Varaxian ships continued their silent watch from above. The countdown to integration had begun, and humanity's time was running out. Dr. Samantha Weiss arrived at the classified facility in Nevada 3 hours after receiving Admiral Grant's call. The desert air was cold at night, a stark contrast to the warmth of her lab at MIT where she had been working until the armed escorts showed up. The facility looked like an ordinary government building from the outside, but underground it housed some of the most advanced technology on Earth. Director Alan Howard met her at the entrance, his tired eyes suggesting he hadn't slept in days. Dr. Weiss, thank you for coming quickly, he said, leading her through a series of security checkpoints. When the military shows up at your door saying it's about alien invaders, you don't exactly take your time, Samantha replied. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and she carried only a small bag with personal items. Everything else she needed would be provided here. They entered a large conference room where Admiral Grant stood with Jack Robinson, Olivia Bennett, and a man Samantha didn't recognize. Dr. Weiss, this is Ryan Kelly, Admiral Grant introduced. Former Special Forces, now my security advisor. Ryan nodded curtly. He was younger than the others, with alert eyes that seemed to notice everything. I've read your paper on quantum consciousness, Admiral Grant said without preamble. I need to know if it's possible, not theoretical. Can human consciousness directly affect quantum states? Samantha hesitated. My research suggests it's possible, but it's never been tested on the scale you're probably thinking of. We don't have time for cautious science, Doctor, Ryan interjected. The Varaxians have given us less than 3 weeks now, and we have nothing that can touch their technology. Jack pulled up images on the main screen showing the Varaxian ships in orbit. Their vessels are interconnected through what appears to be a quantum entanglement network. It's how they coordinate so perfectly. Samantha studied the data. This is similar to what I've been researching, but to affect their systems, we would need an incredibly powerful quantum interface. Can you build one? Admiral Grant asked directly. Maybe. But there's another problem, Samantha said. In my theory, humans evolved to suppress this ability. It's why we don't naturally affect electronic equipment with our thoughts. Breaking that suppression could be dangerous. For the operator, you mean, Ryan said, understanding immediately. Samantha nodded. The human brain isn't designed to channel that much quantum energy. It could kill whoever attempts it. The room fell silent. Then Olivia spoke up. But it's something the Varaxians wouldn't expect. They clearly think we're primitive, defenseless. We're cornered animals, Ryan added. And that's when we're at our most dangerous. Admiral Grant looked at each person in turn. Dr. Weiss, you'll have whatever resources you need. Director Howard will see to it. We're calling this Project Harbinger. Over the next several days, Samantha worked with a team of top scientists to build a quantum amplification chamber. The device was designed to break down the natural barriers in the human brain that prevented conscious manipulation of quantum states. Jack continued to decode Varaxian communications, working closely with Olivia. One evening, as they reviewed new data, Jack went pale. What is it? Olivia asked, noticing his expression. I've figured out what integration means, he said quietly. They're not taking our resources or our land. They're taking us, our neural patterns. He showed her the translated communications. The Varaxians used conquered species as biological processors in their vast computational networks, harvesting neural patterns to power their empire's technology. We need to tell the others, Olivia said, her voice shaking. When Admiral Grant heard the news, he immediately increased security around Project Harbinger. If they're after our brains, they'll be especially interested in Dr. Weiss's work, he explained to Ryan. Meanwhile, tension grew worldwide as the Varaxian presence became more intrusive. Their scout ships began mapping Earth's surface in detail, occasionally descending into the atmosphere to take samples. Governments struggled to maintain order as panic spread among populations. In the Nevada facility, the first test of the Harbinger device produced both promising and terrifying results. A volunteer operator, a physicist with high PSI scores, managed to disrupt electronic systems 2 miles away, but suffered a massive cerebral hemorrhage in the process. The human brain isn't designed to channel this much energy, Samantha explained to Admiral Grant afterward. We need more time to refine the interface. Time is the one thing we don't have, the Admiral replied grimly. While analyzing Varaxian technology patterns, Olivia made a critical discovery. Their systems are heavily integrated through quantum entanglement, the exact phenomenon that Project Harbinger targets, she told the team excitedly. You mean we could potentially disrupt their entire fleet at once? Ryan asked. Theoretically, yes, Olivia confirmed. But we'd need to get close enough to their command ship to establish the initial quantum link. Admiral Grant called an emergency meeting. We have less than a week remaining. We need a plan now. After hours of debate, they settled on a desperate strategy. A small team would approach the Dominion under the guise of surrender negotiations, while a Harbinger operator would attempt to disable the Varaxian fleet from Earth. We'll need a volunteer for the Harbinger, Admiral Grant said, looking around the room. I'll do it, Samantha said before anyone else could speak. You're the only one who fully understands the technology, Jack protested. Exactly, Samantha replied firmly. I've made all the necessary adjustments after the first test. I know the risks. Better one willing sacrifice than billions of unwilling ones. Admiral Grant nodded solemnly. Dr. Weiss will operate the Harbinger. Now we need a team for the diplomatic mission. Ryan immediately volunteered. I have combat experience if things go wrong. I should go too, Jack added. I understand their language better than anyone. A naval officer named Commander Daniel White was selected to lead the mission, along with Dr. Michelle Garcia, a xenobiologist who might be able to assess Varaxian biology firsthand. As preparations accelerated, Director Howard approached Samantha privately. Are you sure about this? He asked. The odds of survival are— I know the odds, she interrupted, but someone has to do it, and I understand the equipment best. 3 days before the Varaxian deadline, Admiral Grant received an unexpected message. The Varaxians were demanding a meeting with Earth's leaders aboard the Dominion. They claimed it was to discuss terms of surrender. "It's perfect timing," Ryan said. "Our diplomatic team can go under their invitation." As Commander White's team prepared for their dangerous mission, Samantha entered the specialized chamber that housed the completed Harbinger device. It resembled a medical scanner surrounded by quantum processors. "Remember," she told Dr. Martinez, the neurologist who would monitor her vital signs, "once I establish the quantum link, I'll need at least 3 minutes to disrupt their systems." Dr. Martinez nodded gravely. "We'll do everything we can to keep you stable." Samantha lay down in the chamber and closed her eyes as the equipment was attached to her head. In orbit above Earth, Commander White's shuttle approached the massive Varaxian warship, carrying the fate of humanity in its hands. The human shuttle approached the massive Varaxian warship like a minnow swimming toward a shark. Commander Daniel White sat in the cockpit, his face calm despite the fear churning in his stomach. Beside him, Dr. Michelle Garcia stared wide-eyed at the alien vessel that filled their viewport. "It's at least 10 miles long," she whispered. Behind them, Jack Robinson and Ryan Kelly checked their hidden equipment one last time. Each team member carried small devices that would gather intelligence and emergency beacons disguised as ordinary items. "Remember," Daniel said quietly, "we're just buying time. Keep them talking as long as possible." Their shuttle entered a massive opening in the side of the Dominion. They landed in a cavernous bay where several alien craft sat in neat rows. The humans stepped out cautiously, immediately struck by the strange smell. Metallic and oddly sweet, 2 Varaxians approached. They walked on 2 legs like humans but were taller and thinner, with gray-blue skin that seemed to shimmer under the lights. Their faces had no noses, just breathing slits, and their large black eyes reflected no emotion. "Follow," one of them said in stilted English. The humans were led through corridors that seemed to pulse with energy. Michelle discreetly activated, the scanner hidden in her watch, collecting biological data on their escorts. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Dr. Samantha Weiss lay inside the Harbinger chamber. Her body was connected to dozens of sensors as Dr. Eric Martinez monitored her vital signs. Admiral Grant and Olivia watched from behind a protective barrier. "Beginning quantum sync now," Eric announced, initiating the sequence they'd rehearsed. The machines around Samantha hummed with increasing intensity. Her body tensed as the neural interface activated, breaking down the natural barriers that had evolved to protect human minds from quantum interactions. "Heart rate elevating," Eric reported. "Brain activity spiking in the parietal lobe." Samantha's consciousness began to expand beyond her physical form. At first, she only sensed the room around her, the energy flowing through the equipment, the nervous system of each person watching. Then her awareness pushed further, reaching beyond the facility walls stretching across miles in seconds. Aboard the Dominion, the human delegation was escorted into what appeared to be a meeting chamber. Along the walls were strange display, cases containing objects from dozens of worlds, trophies from conquered civilizations. High Commander Zextal sat on an elevated platform. Unlike the other Varaxians, his skin had a purple tinge, and markings covered his elongated head. "Humans," he said, his voice surprisingly deep. "Your species shows wisdom in accepting the inevitable." "We're here to discuss terms," Daniel replied carefully. "Our leaders wish to minimize loss of life during the integration." Zextal's mouth formed what might have been a smile. "There will be minimal discomfort. Your neural architecture will serve the Empire well." While Daniel engaged the commander in conversation, Michelle wandered toward one of the display cases, pretending to admire the artifacts while scanning everything in sight. One display caught her attention. It contained charred remains of what looked like technology, but with an unusual label in the Varaxian language. She casually moved closer to Jack and whispered, "Can you translate the label on that burned display?" Jack glanced at it briefly. "It says the unprocessed or something similar." Ryan, who had been studying the Varaxian guards, joined their quiet conversation. "Ask them about it. Might buy us more time." Michelle raised her voice. Commander, may I ask about this interesting artifact? What were the unprocessed? For the first time, Zexatal's composure faltered slightly. A foolish species that chose extinction over submission. They are not worth discussing. The subtle change in his demeanor was telling. The Varaxians had failed somewhere, with someone. Back on Earth, Samantha's consciousness continued to expand. Her awareness now reached the upper atmosphere, sensing the Varaxian scout ships in orbit. Each vessel appeared to her quantum-enhanced perception as a node in a vast network, connected by threads of entangled particles. Blood pressure dropping, Eric reported urgently. She's going too deep, too fast. Can you stabilize her? Admiral Grant asked. I'm trying, but her brain is rewiring itself to handle the quantum interface. This is uncharted territory. Samantha could feel her physical body weakening, but her expanded consciousness grew stronger. She reached further, stretching toward the Dominion. The massive warship blazed in her perception like a sun of interconnected quantum states. And then she sensed them thousands of alien minds trapped within the Varaxian systems, not just data or code, but actual consciousnesses, harvested from conquered species and forced to process information eternally. Their silent screams nearly overwhelmed her. With tremendous effort, Samantha maintained her focus. She reached for the quantum threads connecting the Varaxian systems, preparing to disrupt them. On the Dominion, Jack noticed the lights flicker briefly. A Varaxian technician entered the chamber and whispered something urgent to Zexatal. The commander's demeanor changed instantly. "What have you done?" he demanded, rising from his seat. Daniel feigned confusion. "I don't understand what you mean." "Your primitive species is attempting something foolish," Zexatal hissed. He turned to his guards. "Secure them. Prepare for immediate integration." The Varaxian guards moved forward but suddenly froze in place as the ship's artificial gravity fluctuated. Equipment along the walls began to malfunction, displays flickering with static. "What's happening?" Michelle whispered to Daniel. "Samantha," he replied quietly. "She's reached them." Samantha's consciousness had found the central hub of the Varaxian quantum network. With careful precision, she began to unravel key connections, causing cascading failures throughout the ship. In the meeting chamber, panic spread among the Varaxians as systems failed one after another. Weapons wouldn't activate. Doors sealed or opened randomly. Communication devices emitted only static. Zexatal barked orders in his native language, but his subordinates couldn't comply as their equipment failed around them. "What have you done?" he demanded again of Daniel, his composure completely gone. Daniel straightened his posture, abandoning the pretense of submission. "We didn't come to surrender. We came to deliver a warning." The ship's communication system suddenly crackled to life, but it wasn't a Varaxian voice that emerged. It was Samantha's, distorted but recognizable. "Varaxian Empire." Her voice echoed throughout the ship. "You thought us primitive. You thought us easy prey. But humanity doesn't fall without a fight." On Earth, Samantha's physical body convulsed as blood trickled from her nose and ears. Her vital signs were critical, but her consciousness remained firmly connected to the Varaxian network. "She's dying," Eric told Admiral Grant urgently. "We need to disconnect her now." "Not yet," Olivia pleaded. "Look at the readings from orbit. It's working." Indeed, across Earth's orbit, Varaxian scout ships drifted powerless, their quantum networks disrupted by Samantha's unprecedented attack. Through the ship's speakers, Samantha's voice continued. "This is your only warning. Leave our solar system now, or we will bring your entire empire down across all of spacetime." As proof of her threat, she simultaneously disabled the propulsion systems across the entire Varaxian fleet, stranding them in Earth orbit. Zexatal stared at the humans with a new emotion in his black eyes. "Fear. Impossible," he whispered. "You're like the unprocessed." "No," Daniel replied firmly. "They chose extinction. We choose victory." Chaos reigned aboard the Dominion as systems failed throughout the massive warship. High Commander Zexatal shouted orders, but his crew scrambled helplessly as their technology betrayed them. Emergency lights cast an eerie red glow across the meeting chamber. "Who is doing this?" Zextal demanded, his voice rising with unfamiliar fear. "How is this possible?" Daniel stepped forward, his posture straight and confident despite the danger. "You thought humans were primitive because we don't have your technology. You never bothered to check if we might have abilities you don't." On the other side of the chamber, Ryan had positioned himself near the exit, ready to act if the situation deteriorated further. Jack stood close to Michelle, both watching for any opportunity to escape if necessary. Through the ship's communication system, Samantha's voice continued to echo. "I can see your entire empire now, Zextal. I can see the billions of minds you've enslaved. I can feel their pain." The Varaxian commander's skin paled to a lighter blue. "The quantum network is closed. No outside force should be able to access it." "Not for us," Daniel replied. "Humanity has evolved in ways you never imagined." Back on Earth, Samantha's physical body was failing rapidly. Blood now flowed freely from her nose, ears, and eyes as her brain struggled with the impossible task of maintaining her expanded consciousness. "Cardiac rhythm becoming erratic," Dr. Martinez reported urgently. "Brain activity off the charts. We have to pull her out now." Admiral Grant leaned closer to the monitoring equipment. "Can she hear us? Can we communicate with her?" "I think so," Olivia said, adjusting some settings. "The quantum link works both ways." She spoke into a microphone connected to the Harbinger system. "Samantha, can you hear me? You've done it. The Varaxian fleet is disabled. You need to come back now." Samantha's consciousness floated in a strange quantum realm where physical distance meant nothing. She could sense Earth below her and the Varaxian ships above, but also something far more vast, the quantum pathways leading to the entire Varaxian Empire, spanning dozens of star systems. She heard Olivia's voice, distant but clear. However, there was something else she needed to do first. Aboard the Dominion, Zextal's guards finally managed to activate emergency weapon systems independent of the main network. They aimed at the human delegation. "This demonstration of power is impressive," Zextal said, regaining some composure. "But it changes nothing. The Empire will simply send more ships." The weapons hummed as they charged. Daniel and his team tensed, preparing for the worst. But just as the guards prepared to fire, their weapons powered down again. "I don't think so." Samantha's voice returned, stronger now. "I've isolated the Dominion in a quantum bubble. You're cut off from the rest of your fleet." Zextal's face contorted with rage. "This is impossible. No species has this capability." "That's where you're wrong," Jack said, stepping forward. "We've translated enough of your records now. The unprocessed. They had similar abilities, didn't they? But they used them differently." Michelle nodded in understanding. "They chose to destroy themselves rather than be enslaved. But we're making a different choice." Through her expanded consciousness, Samantha accessed the Dominion's historical records. The information flowed into her mind instantly. The story of a species the Varaxians had encountered centuries ago who possessed natural quantum manipulation abilities. Rather than be conquered and have their minds harvested, they had triggered a quantum collapse that destroyed their entire civilization. The Varaxians had dismissed it as a primitive species choosing extinction, never understanding the true power they had encountered. They never imagined finding another species with similar potential. On Earth, Samantha's body convulsed violently. "She's going into arrest," Dr. Martinez shouted, rushing to stabilize her. "Tell her to come back now," Admiral Grant ordered. Olivia leaned into the microphone again. "Samantha, please, you're dying. You need to disconnect from the network and return to your body." But Samantha had one final task. Through the ship's systems, she broadcast directly to Zextal and the entire Varaxian command structure. "This is humanity's ultimatum." Her voice resonated through the Dominion. "Immediate withdrawal from the Sol system and a non-aggression pact. Or I will initiate complete quantum dissolution of your empire's network. Every ship, every base, every planet under your control will lose all technological function simultaneously." To demonstrate her power, she created a localized quantum disturbance that caused half the Dominion's remaining functional systems to shut down permanently. On the ship's bridge, Varaxian officers turned to Zexital in panic. For the first time, in the Empire's history, they faced a threat they could not counter. "You cannot expect us to abandon expansion," Zexital said, his voice now less certain. "It is the foundation of our civilization." "Then find another way to grow," Daniel replied firmly, "one that doesn't involve enslaving other beings." In the Nevada facility, alarms blared as Samantha's vital signs crashed. "We're losing her," Dr. Martinez shouted over the noise. "Brain function is becoming erratic." Olivia worked frantically at the controls. "Samantha, complete your task and come back to us, please." Aboard the Dominion, a strange calm suddenly fell over the chaos. The emergency lights stabilized and a few systems came back online, but only basic life support and navigation. "What is happening?" Sextal demanded. Through the speakers, Samantha's voice came one last time, now weaker but still resolute. "I've restored just enough function for you to leave. The rest will return gradually as you move beyond Neptune's orbit. Your empire will receive the same message. Earth is off limits." The human delegation watched as the Varaxian command staff conferred urgently. After what seemed like an eternity, Zextal turned to them. "We accept your terms," he said, the words clearly painful to him. "The fleet will withdraw." Back on Earth, Samantha's physical form lay still as medical staff fought to revive her. Her consciousness, however, remained spread throughout quantum space, watching as the Varaxian fleet slowly began to power up and move away from Earth. Admiral Grant stood by the Harbinger chamber, his face grim as he watched the medical team work. "Is she gone?" he asked quietly. Dr. Martinez shook his head. "Her body is technically alive, but brain activity is unusual. It's like nothing I've ever seen before." Olivia studied the quantum readings from the Harbinger device. "I don't think she's gone. I think she's everywhere." As the Varaxian fleet departed Earth's orbit, a strange phenomenon occurred across the planet. For just a few seconds, every electronic device displayed the same message. "Humanity is protected. The stars remain open to us." In hospitals, research centers, and homes around the world, people began to report strange dreams, glimpses of distant worlds, alien civilizations breaking free of Varaxian control, and a sense of a watchful presence spreading through the stars. Jack visited Samantha's physical form in the medical facility days later. Though technically brain-dead by medical standards, the equipment occasionally detected unusual quantum fluctuations in her neural tissue. He placed his hand on the stasis chamber and whispered, "You did it, Sam. You saved us all." As he turned to leave, the screen beside her bed briefly flickered with words that weren't part of its programming. "I know." 1 month after the Varaxian retreat, the world was still coming to terms with what had happened. Streets that had once been filled with panic now buzzed with a new energy. Humanity had faced extinction and survived. More than that, they had one Commander Daniel White, Jack Robinson, Michelle Garcia, and Ryan Kelly were welcomed back to Earth as heroes. Their dangerous mission to the Dominion had bought Samantha the time she needed to execute her plan. World leaders honored them in a global broadcast, though few outside a small circle knew the full truth of what had occurred. In the medical wing of the Nevada facility, Samantha's body remained in a specialized stasis chamber. Machines kept her physical form alive, though doctors reported no conventional brain activity. Yet strange quantum fluctuations continued to emanate from her neural tissue. Jack visited daily, sitting beside the chamber for hours. Sometimes he spoke to her, other times he simply sat in silence. Today, Olivia joined him. "Any change?" she asked quietly. Jack shook his head. "Not physically. But I swear sometimes the equipment reacts when I talk to her." Olivia studied the monitors. "The quantum field around her body is unlike anything we've ever recorded. It's almost as if her consciousness exists on a different plane now." "Is she still her?" Jack asked. "I think so. Olivia replied. But she's also something more. Throughout the world, people reported unusual experiences, dreams of distant stars, flashes of insight that led to scientific breakthroughs, children suddenly solving complex mathematical problems. It was as if something was gently guiding humanity forward. Admiral Grant and Director Howard met in a secure conference room, with world leaders displayed on screens around them. The mood was cautious but optimistic. The Varaxians have maintained the non-aggression pact, Admiral Grant reported. Our deep space monitoring stations confirm they've withdrawn from our entire sector. And what of Dr. Weiss? Asked the President of the United States. What exactly happened to her? Director Howard cleared his throat. Our best understanding is that her consciousness expanded beyond her physical form. The quantum entanglement reached a point where she evolved, for lack of a better word. Is she dangerous? Asked another leader. On the contrary, Admiral Grant replied. We believe she's protecting us. In deep space, at the edge of what had once been Varaxian territory, something remarkable was happening. World after world that had been conquered by the Empire found their oppressive systems mysteriously failing. The neural networks that had enslaved countless minds shut down, freeing the beings trapped inside. On one such world, the inhabitants looked up at their night sky to see the message, "Humanity sends its regards. Freedom is coming," written in their own language among the stars. Back on Earth, Ryan Kelly led a new defense initiative. Teams of scientists worked to understand and develop the quantum abilities Samantha had discovered. They made slow progress, but each breakthrough brought humanity closer to mastering its latent potential. We're not trying to copy what Samantha did, Ryan explained to a group of researchers. No one should have to sacrifice themselves like she did. We're looking for a safer way to access these abilities. Michelle had returned to her xenobiology research, now with a wealth of new data collected from the Varaxians. Their biology isn't actually that different from ours, she told Jack during a video call. The main difference was their technological head start. They've been harvesting other species' neural patterns for millennia. And now they know there are consequences, Jack replied. In orbit around Earth, the first human quantum communications array was under construction. Based on the technology Samantha had helped humanity understand, it would allow instant communication across vast distances without the risk of interception. Olivia led the project, applying her astrophysics knowledge to this new frontier. We're not just copying Varaxian technology, she explained to Admiral Grant during an inspection. We're developing our own path, one that doesn't require enslaving other beings. 3 months after the confrontation, Jack was working late in his office at NASA when his computer screen suddenly flickered. Words appeared that he hadn't typed. The desert. Midnight. Come alone. Jack didn't hesitate. He drove for hours into the Nevada desert, finally stopping at the coordinates that had appeared on his screen. The night was clear, stars brilliantly visible in the dark sky. He waited, wondering if he had been foolish to come. Then the air before him seemed to shimmer, and a familiar voice spoke. Hello, Jack. It wasn't quite Samantha's voice as he remembered it. It had a strange, echoing quality, as if coming from everywhere at once. A faint outline appeared in the air, roughly human-shaped but composed of shifting light. Samantha, he whispered, his heart pounding. Is that really you? Yes and no, the presence replied. I'm still Samantha, but I'm more than I was. My consciousness exists throughout quantum space now. I can see everything. Jack stepped closer. Can you come back? The doctors say your body is still alive. The light flickered. That vessel is too limited now. I couldn't return to it any more than you could return to the womb. But I haven't abandoned humanity. I've been helping, guiding where I can. The dreams people are having, Jack said, understanding dawning. The technological breakthroughs. That's you? Gentle nudges, Samantha confirmed. Humanity needs to find its own path, but I can help avoid the worst dangers. And the Varaxians? The light shifted, forming patterns like a smile. They're learning that there are other ways to advance. Some are more resistant than others, but change is happening. The species they enslaved are being freed. Jack reached out hesitantly, his hand passing through the light. It felt warm, like sunlight on his skin. "I wanted you to know I'm still here," Samantha said. "I made a choice, Jack. I don't regret it." "Will we see you again?" he asked. "I'm always here, though not always visible. Humanity is taking its first steps into a much larger universe. There are wonders out there you can't imagine, and dangers too. I'll help where I can." The light began to fade. "Tell the others I'm watching over them. Tell Olivia she's on the right track with the quantum array. And Jack, live well. That's what we fought for." As the light vanished, Jack stood alone in the desert. Above him, the stars seemed somehow brighter, more welcoming than before. 6 months after the Varaxian retreat, humanity launched its first quantum-enhanced ship. Built with technology developed from understanding both Varaxian systems and Samantha's discoveries, it was capable of traveling faster than light. As the ship prepared to make its maiden voyage, the crew was startled when all systems briefly displayed the same message. "The stars welcome you. I'll be watching." On Earth, Jack smiled as he watched the launch broadcast. Humanity had faced extinction and not only survived but emerged stronger. And somewhere in the quantum fabric of the universe, Samantha Weiss continued her journey, a guardian evolved beyond human limitations but never forgetting what it meant to be human. The Varaxian Empire had targeted Earth and received one final warning. They never needed a second one.